for joining this joint media briefing. My name is Foster Mohale. I'm responsible for media and communication in the National Department of Health. I'm going to be the facilitator of this media briefing, in which the government is going to respond to the research study findings conducted by the University of Free State as far as the issue of sanitary pads and panty liners are concerned. So without wasting any time, Minister of Health, Dr. Aron Motsoaledi, is going to lead this media briefing, but is supported by other reps, the Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Patla, the Deputy Minister of Department of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities, Ms. Tiflitsike, the World Health Organization Country Director, Ms. Shenas Alawi, and also the Acting Commissioner for National Consumer Commission, Mr. Harding. So without wasting any time, I'm going to call upon the Minister of Health, Dr. Aron Motsoaledi, to come to the stage. Minister.
There's space on my gadget. Oh, the place is full. Yeah. Take this. Yeah. I'll put it below. Yeah. Program Director, my colleague, the Deputy Minister of Health, Dr. Joe Patla, and my colleague, Deputy Minister of Women, Youth, and People with Disabilities, Mapaseka Tiflitsike, scientists, researchers, and clinicians from our various institutions. I want to specifically welcome Professor Ndobek Ntuzi, who is online. He is the President and CEO of our prime research organization, the South African Medical Research Council. He could not be with us today because he's in Cape Town, but is logged in there. I also want to give a special welcome to the President of South African Society of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, President Ismail Borat. He's also with another member of South African Society of Gynecologists, Professor Zozo Nene. They are also logged in on the screen there. The Chief Regulation Officer of the SAHPRA, South African Health Product Regulatory Authority, is also on the screen because Dr. Simete, who was with us yesterday in preparations, could not make it. On the screen, we also have Dr. Richard Brown, who is the head of chemicals and radiation at the World Health Organization. He has logged in from Geneva, but I'm sure you are aware that the WHO is represented here today. So I also wish to welcome officials from the regulatory authorities. We have got in our midst Mr. Hadin Nadishan, who is representing, who is the acting commissioner of the National Consumer Commission. I also want to welcome here in front with us Dr. Shenas El Halabi, who is the country representative of the World Health Organization here in South Africa. As I said, her scientist, Dr. Brown, is logged in from Geneva. We also have representatives from various state entities that were part of this work. Members of the media, you are welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, And fellow South Africans, good morning. Today is an important day as we commemorate the International Women's Day with the theme, Give to Gain. It is important and fitting that we have this briefing today on International Women's Day. I wish to start by apologizing for the Minister of Trade, Industry and Competition, Minister Pax Dau. He is an integral part of this event. Unfortunately, yesterday he left overseas. I spoke to him by phone and he's wished us well. He said we are also representing him. But as you also can see, the Minister of a very important stakeholder department in this regard, Minister Cindy Chikunga, is also overseas and is represented in this event by Deputy Minister Litsike. Minister Cindy Chikunga said if she can find a time where she is in the US, she'll also like to log in. I think she hasn't logged in yet, but we have got Deputy Minister Litsike, so we are complete. Thank you very much for attending this press conference, which I believe was long awaited by the country as a whole. I promised Parliament, because this matter was raised very sharply in Parliament, where they believe the state is doing nothing about an impending disaster that's going to befall women. I promised them that before the end of the week, we'll be having a press conference, and I believe we have kept our word. Now, let's start with the background. A study was conducted by the Department of Analytical Chemistry at the University of Free State and was published on the 25th of February, 2026. This study was conducted on 16 sanitary pads and 7 panty liners, which were bought online. In the study, small quantities of endocrine disrupting chemicals, colloquially referred to as EDCs, were present in the tested samples. The study concluded that menstrual products are a significant but overlooked source of exposure to endocrine disrupting chemicals. This story was picked up by the media and has received wide coverage, especially in social media, resulting in widespread panic amongst women and young girls who use these products on a regular basis. Now, what are these EDCs, or endocrine disrupting chemicals? Endocrine disrupting chemicals are natural or human-made products that have the potential to interfere with the action of hormones, especially reproductive and thyroid hormones, if the quantities exceed the permissible concentration levels. Hormones, on the other hand, are the body's chemical messengers produced by endocrine glands and are released into the bloodstream to regulate vital physiological process. They control metabolism. That means what you eat and what you take out and what you digest. They also control growth of a human being or any organism. They control reproduction. They also control mood and sleep and wake cycles. It's not spontaneous. You don't sleep and wake by a watch. There's an internal physiological process that does so. The watches are just helping us. Endocrine disrupting chemicals are said to be capable of disrupting these very important bodily functions, which I've just mentioned. The permissible concentration levels of endocrine disrupting chemicals in any product are determined by the cosmetic ingredient expert panel. This cosmetic ingredient expert panel is an international panel. They control whether the amounts of these disrupting agents are in concentrations that are harmful. Their decisions are usually used by relevant regulatory bodies, such as the Food and Drug Administration in the US, to set practice guidelines. There are many regulatory bodies in all our countries. That in our country is SAHPRA. The reason that I'm quoting the Food and Drug Administration is the biggest of them all over the world. You'll understand why. Because it's in the US. It has got more than 10,000 people who are sitting there every day for purpose of regulations. Yes. Now, where are these ECDs found? Where do we find them? Do we find them only on pads and panty liners? As earlier said, these are naturally occurring or human-made chemicals. Endocrine disrupting substances can occur naturally, but they can also be made by human beings. Now, the most important takeaway message for today is that endocrine disrupting chemicals are said to be ubiquitous in science. This is a very difficult word, difficult to pronounce. Ubiquitous. It means they are present, appearing, or found everywhere. Everywhere where there are human beings, these chemicals are ever present. They ever appear, and they are found everywhere. I want this message to be a take-home message because it's a very important message. They are ever present in low concentrations, in various foodstuffs, in household products, in personal care and beauty products, cosmetics, toothpaste, shampoo, conditioners, body lotions, lipsticks, which many of you are wearing today, clothing, which all of us are wearing, electronics, which many of you are carrying. They are widely used in agriculture as pesticides. The food we eat, one of the reasons that it has been able to produce is because we killed pests, and some of the chemicals used there are falling within this class of endocrine disrupting chemicals. Now, is the finding of endocrine disrupting chemicals in menstrual products a surprise or a new finding? That's the question. Is this finding a surprise or a new finding? Not at all. The findings of endocrine disrupting chemicals were found in menstrual blood. It's not surprising to us at all. Previous published studies have confirmed that small amounts of these endocrine disruptors are present in menstrual health products. Have scientists always known about endocrine disrupting chemicals? That's the question. And have they also known that they are ever present in human life? Yes. The presence of endocrine disrupting substances have been known for over 100 years. And if I have to be precise, they were identified in the early 20s. So it means it's 106 years since that. A study in China reported that 40% of endocrine disrupting chemicals emanated from foodstuffs, 40% from other personal care products, as I mentioned, cosmetics and all that, and 18% from indoor dust, because these chemicals also are found widely in the soil. Of the personal care products, which we abbreviate as PCPs, which were analyzed, sanitary pads contributed 6.8% of the total exposure through feminine personal care products.
Recording in progress.
Now, what was the response by the state to the University of Free State study? Because quite a number of people, especially on social media, believe the state just went into hiding. Immediately after the study was released, the Department of Women, Youth and Persons with Disabilities, also the Department of Health, convened different meetings of experts to dissect this issue. You will appreciate that these are the departments that were directly affected. But from there, the two departments worked together to convene experts relevant to the study findings. The experts that were convened are divided into two clear groups in South Africa, but I might also add a third group, which is UN agencies. But here in South Africa, there were two groups. The first group are scientists, researchers, clinicians, and other health workers, those who work in the field of health. The second group are regulatory authorities and institutions. I've already mentioned here SAHPRA, National Consumer Commission, and many others who regulate everything we consume or we use. The United Nations agencies, viz., the World Health Organization, and the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, with their respective experts, also joined the meetings. I was not given the name of an expert from NFPA who could have joined, but I told you the expert from WHO, Dr. Richard Brown, responsible for chemicals and radiation at the WHO. I'm sure during the course of the meeting we'll know from UNFPA who has joined. Now, the meetings were attended as follows. Under the class of scientists, researchers, and clinicians, we had South African Medical Research Council. South African Medical Research Council. I'm used to SANAC, South African Medical Research Council, represented by its president and CEO, Professor Ntobeko Ntusi, who is online, as I said. The National Health Laboratory Services, NHLS, which was represented in the meeting by its CEO, Dr. Boitumelo Semete, who is not around today and sent a representative. We had the National Institute for Occupational Health, NIOH. We had the South African Society of Obstetricians and Gynecology, SASOG, together with the South African Society of Reproductive Medicine and Gynecological Endoscopy. These were represented by Professor Ismail Borat and Professor Zozo Nene. Then, as I said, we have got the regulatory bodies, which I've already mentioned, but amongst them I forgot to mention National Regulator for Compulsory Specifications, or NRCS, and as I said, United Nations agencies in the form of World Health Organization and United Nations for Population Fund. This statement that I'm reading to you today is on behalf of all these bodies and institutions I've mentioned. It's not a speech by the Department of Health. It's a speech that was drafted jointly yesterday by all these bodies sitting together, some online, and I read the speech to them. So if I'm misrepresenting them, they are here, they'll be able to correct me, but I'm reading their speech. The meeting noted the following, which we wish to bring to the attention of the nation. Number one, that 20 publications have been produced over the years about endocrine disrupting chemicals in sanitary pads. We had 20 publications already. That all the 20 studies have not demonstrated any inference of clinical harm to the people using these products. And again, they want us to repeat that endocrine disrupting chemicals are ubiquitous, found all over where human beings are. The exposure, also said we must tell you that the exposure of endocrine disrupting chemicals is actually higher in men than in women due to occupational exposure. I'm emphasizing this because the fear and the panic was about women, not men. But when you check, if you check physiologically in the blood of many people who are exposed to endocrine disrupting chemicals are men than women because of occupational exposure, as we saw with that study from China. But also, they said we must inform you that scientists are obliged to follow well-established scientific methods and protocols, and that scientists need to know and understand the avenue of reporting their findings. And also that globally, the industries that manufacture sanitary pads follow a universal approach in their manufacturing, and it's not unique to South Africa. And that potential risks of endocrine disrupting chemicals to disrupt hormones is still theoretical and not yet established in practice. That to establish potential risk needs certain amounts of the chemicals, and the relevant concentrations are determined, as I said earlier, by the Cosmetic Ingredient Expert Panel, which is an international body. That concentrations of EDC in menstrual products is very low. That findings of ECDs in sanitary pads does not automatically translate into harm in the human body, and that no link of clinical harm was established by the study that brought us here, and that in the absence of reliable data and small sample size studied, no harm to the general public can be said to have been proven. That also, that there were no clinicians, endocrinologists, or chemical pathologists that were involved in the study. These are special groups of people who, if there was any harm, are the first who could have detected it. The National Health Laboratory Services has not tested any human samples of endocrine disrupting chemicals because no clinician has ever requested such from their clinical examination of any patient. So when we asked the National Health Laboratory Services what is their experience, they said no, they don't have any because nobody ever requested this from any clinical finding. This is important to note because when there was listeriosis, the first people who detected it, remember that disease which was found in Poland, the first people who detected it were doctors when they started getting patients, and they sent samples to the National Health Laboratory Services, whose institution, the NICD, the National Institute of Communicable Diseases, is an expert in this field. And they confirmed when we phoned them, that doctors are phoning us in the national department. They are seeing something that they've not seen before. Have you detected it? They said yes. We've already got quite a number of samples which are testing positive. So in this case, they say nothing was ever sent to them from any clinical examination. Also, that SAHPRA regards any product that aids a physiological function as a medical product. You are aware that SAHPRA used to be called the Medicine Regulatory Authority. The name changed to South African Health Products Regulatory Authority because it regulates all health products. Now they say one of their guiding principles is that any product that aids a physiological function is a medical product, which means pads sanitary pads, because they are aiding a physiological product that happens in a female body, are medical products which must be regulated by SAHPRA. But SAHPRA tells us that certain sanitary pads, while falling within this category, that aids physiological function, have been exempted by SAHPRA from regulation due to what they regarded as very low risk. They did not pick up any risk, and so they exempted them from ever being regulated like all the other medicines. You are aware SAHPRA regulate medicines by registering them, by monitoring side effects, and recalling them if they pick up anything. But in this case, they exempted them because people were asking where was SAHPRA. That from 2017, SAHPRA participated in an international study of low-risk medical equipment, and no evidence of causality was presented in those studies. That to date, no report of adverse effects due to the use of sanitary pads was presented to SAHPRA, and no need for regulation within SAHPRA was arrived at. That since the chemicals have been known globally for many years, the World Health Organization has been looking for any evidence of harm over all these years, but up to date, they never found any from these products. But we also know that the University of Free State study itself mentioned, I think in a press release, they mentioned that the study was not designed to establish a direct causal relationship between the detected chemicals and disease in women. Also that the research findings and their publications are not intended to constitute medical advice, so they are not advising anybody, consumer directive, or product usage recommendations. Rather, the study presented peer-reviewed scientific data and identify areas that researchers might need to look into further. That's what we're told the study did. So the research does not recommend that current products be withdrawn from the markets. And the NCC, National Consumer Commission, also reached a similar conclusion that from studies, including metrology, which they consulted, they reached a conclusion that there is nothing withdrawn. Now, the conclusion. World Health Organization is not aware of any cases globally where access to these important health products have been withdrawn because of concerns over health effects arising from endocrine disrupting chemicals. Another conclusion is that endocrine disrupting chemicals cannot be completely avoided or removed. That is a fact of life that must also be taken into consideration. Nobody can remove them and nobody can withdraw them completely. And that none of the tested products warrants withdrawal from the market. We've already said so. And that no evidence at present to support change of usual practice by users to these projects, to this product. Now, another conclusion is that regulators need to continue with their regulatory frameworks, surveillance, and consumer protection, as they've been doing all along. Nothing to change. They must just continue doing what they've been doing every day to make sure that me and you consume safe products. These regulatory authorities, as we said, is the South African Health Product Regulatory Authority, the South African Bureau of Standards, the National Regulator for Compulsory Specification, and the National Consumer Commission. We are saying in conclusion that we know they've been regulating what we consume. They must just continue. Nothing has changed. We are also saying the scientists must continue to research on these endocrine disrupting chemicals, just as they've been doing for the past 106 years. I've already mentioned that it is 106 years that scientists have identified these chemicals and they've been researching them left, right, and center. They must just continue. Nothing changes. I think I've reached the end of the presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for unpacking the statement as far as the government's response to the findings of the study conducted by the University of Free State. As Minister has indicated at the beginning that he's not representing the Department of Health, but is representing collective. So even when we come to questions, so feel free to direct questions to anyone, or look, the panel will decide, including the panel members who are joined virtually. You can see we've got about 4 panels, as Minister has indicated. SAHPRA is here, SASOC is here, and I forgot the third one. But otherwise, all the experts, WHO is here also in the room, but also virtually. So all the experts are here. Feel free to engage them. I believe we are also joined by other members of the media virtually. Can I have an indication if we've got any questions from the virtual platform?
Thanks, Pastor. So far, we don't have questions from virtual platforms. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We will keep checking the space. So in the meantime, I'm going to allow colleagues who are from the media who are in the room. I want to emphasize colleagues from the media, in case there's anyone who's here who's not from the media, who's here, who's not from the media, just be reminded that this is a press conference. Only members of the media are allowed to interact with the panel, both who are here in person and virtually. So can we have an indication in terms of the hands from the media? As a practice, you raise your hand, tell us your name and the media house you come from. So let's see the hands. I see the hand at the back. Go on, your name and the media house. Oh, number 1 will be number 1. Number 2 here, I think it's ENCA. Okay, maybe for now, let's take these 2 hands and yeah, go on. The first one. Your mic is not on. No, it must show some
There's a mic
red.
there in front.
Check the next. Yeah.
A very good morning to everyone. CEO from Business Day. Very good morning. Yes. To the Minister, basically the number of the address today from the consultations that you had with the different bodies is that there is no need for immediate withdrawal of the products that which we sort of flagged in the research. The research does say that the ECDs that were found in these products are within the limits, but raise a concern that exposure over years is a concern. And it does also state that the ECDs are found in other products such as the food that we eat, raising the concern that it might lead to cancer or whatever, or the other illnesses that were cited there. Does the Minister or the panel accept that exposure over years to the ECDs does culminate in a concern in terms of contracting or in terms of cancer and all of that? That's my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's get the second question.
Hi, Linda Lasibata from ENCA. I'd like to know what engagements were had with the researchers of the university, and is the Minister saying that the researchers did not follow the correct protocol in reporting the findings of their study in terms of how it was disseminated? And I would like to hear from the panelists as well in terms of what does regulation look like moving forward. From my understanding, the message is basically there's nothing to worry about, but people are still worried. Just to come off the back of my the question from my colleague from Business Day, it seems overexposure over a longer period of time. And we've got girls who are as young as 12 who are using these products from a young age. So is there really no concern at all? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question in the House on the visual platforms? Any update, Tala?
Thanks, Foster. We now have 4 questions from Bohlali Moloi, who is representing Good Fate. And the first question is, does the dissemination of the University of Free State study via social media and news outlets imply that the presence of endocrine disrupting chemicals in panty liners and menstrual hygiene products was misinterpreted, thereby inciting unwarranted public alarm? And the second one, what regulatory measures ensure that low-cost menstrual products sold in informal outlets contain EDC levels below threshold, posing adverse reproductive and endocrine risks to females, especially in rural populations? And the third one, based on the university study highlighting EDC hazards in menstrual products, are there any specific brands slated for recall? The last one for now, amid ubiquitous EDC exposure from daily consumer goods and rising counterfeit products driven by economic pressures, what interventions mitigate cumulative EDC burdens exceeding safe chronic toxicity limits? Thanks.
Thank you very much. I think we have got enough questions for the first round of this interactive sessions. Minister will lead, then we'll assign others to other members of the panel.
I am going to try and answer, but quite a number of your questions are very scientific and technical. And then I'll rely to the scientists on board to answer them. But the issue of exposure over the years, especially in food, that is cause for concern. That's exactly what we have already said. That since 106 years ago, the World Health Organization has been busy checking whether these chemicals are causing any trouble. I've already said that in the speech, that the World Organization has been doing surveillance because of this potential theoretical threat. They've been checking whether it's coming to fruition for 106 years. That is why they've got a unit dealing with chemicals and radiation, whose head, Dr. Brown, is there. I'm going to ask him to say something about it, because you mentioned the issue of over the years. We're already having 100 years. Now, colleagues, I just want to add something, because yes, people have got the right to be fearful when scientists or studies show something that might put them in trouble. But I want to give you just an example about what is called potential harm. We have got a chemical called DDT, which is brutally effective against mosquitoes. But it's a chemical which the United Nations Environmental Program has classified as a POPs, or persistent organic pollutant, meaning it's always in the soil, it doesn't go away, and there's potential. There have been studies done in lizards and all that, that it can disrupt reproductive systems. For that reason, DDT was banned under what is called the Stockholm Declaration, where United Nations Population Environmental Program had a meeting in Stockholm in Sweden, and they declared that DDTs must be banned because of that reason. South Africa is one of the countries that stopped using DDT in 1996. It took 4 years for malaria to increase by 60%, just 4 years. And South Africa rushed to go back to use DDT. Namibia told me the same thing. the number of pregnant women and children under 5 who died because of that fear that DDT is a pollutant and cause trouble, because somebody put that study. That theory that DDT can kill started in 1960. It is 66 years now. I can show you graves caused by mosquitoes from malaria. Nobody has shown me a single grave caused by DDT. But they always say the ever, you know. Now, in Limpopo, in Vembe, Mopani, Itanzeni in Mpumalanga, and Mkanyagude in KZN, if you start spraying at least 90% of the houses at the borders with DDT, malarias go up immediately, even cerebral malaria. So much, we took this decision so much, that in 2013, myself and the then Minister of Health in Namibia, Dr. Kwame, and a professor who was the Minister of Health in Nigeria, we went to Abuja to heads of states and pleaded with them to take a resolution that South Africa cannot stop using DDT, despite what this persistent organic pollutant, and the World Health Organization supported us, because we say people are going to die like flies. So the fact that there are studies that show potential harm does not necessarily translate into that harm. I just want to say that. But it doesn't mean that you don't do surveillance. DDT has been, the world has been doing, scientists have been doing surveillance since 1960. The same as this product. WHO and other scientists have been doing surveillance over a period of 106 years. So the fact that the study shows potential danger does not necessarily translate into that, but doesn't mean we fold our arms, because we are saying long term, yes. In the long term, something might emerge, but not now. It has not yet emerged. Slindelo from ENCA says, did I say the scientists did not follow correct protocol? That's not for me. That's not for me. The institution that determines correct protocols for research, which is the prime research organization in health, is Medical Research Council. They don't control any other research. They control medical research. That is linked to medical issues. And I will let them answer that question. You also said, what does regulation means moving forward? We just said regulators must continue their work. Bukhali, the 4 questions that do I regard the leak of the study to social media as media misinformation? This study was put in a journal. And of course, the media picked it up from journal. I don't think anybody was misinforming anybody. I think the media that picked up this story, which also leaked into social media, were interpreting what they've found in their own way and in their own understanding. What regulatory measures make sure that there are low amounts? I've already told you that there's an international body that is doing that work. That regulatory bodies all over the world take hint from. That body already exists, is doing the work every year. Are there any specific brands for recall? I've already said this study itself said they are not recommending any recall, and the scientists also. So nobody ever gave an indication or instruction that anything must be recalled. The issue of intervention of intervention of ECDs. I am not sure what the question read. Can somebody repeat for me? They said something about intervention of ECDs for from toxicity.
exposure from daily consumer goods and rising counterfeit.
Oh, yes, exactly. That is why we have got regulators everywhere. We are aware of that. Remember, late last year, we in the Department of Health were invited by SAHPRA, WHO was also involved, launching a campaign to deal with counterfeit goods and false labeling. That campaign is there. WHO has got it. We became part of it last year because we know in this world the rise of counterfeit goods and false products is on the rise. So we didn't fold our arms. It's already there. There is surveillance every day, not just when something happened. Every day, you might not be aware of it because nothing happened. And when something happened, you may then believe they are starting now. No, it's been done every day because of fear of counterfeit goods and false products. Thank you very much. I will ask Professor Ntobe to help with the first question. Prof, that the issue of exposure over the years, he will be followed by Dr. Brown from WHO. Prof. Ntusi? I can see that.
Thank you very much, Minister. Are you able to hear me clearly?
Absolutely, we can.
Wonderful. So, Minister, I wish to emphasize two key points from your comprehensive statement. The first is that, as the Minister mentioned, these EDCs were described in the 1920s following the development of agricultural products that were also demonstrated to act as environmental pollutants. This was followed in the 1930s by the development of synthetic estrogen and other chemicals that could potentially impact human hormonal function. And since then, the concern has always been that hormones operate at extremely low concentrations and regulate critical biological processes. And therefore, a worry is that even at small exposures, these EDCs can have biological effects. But it is critical to emphasize that such clinical effects have not been demonstrated, and the concerns about the clinical effects of EDCs have not stood up to epidemiological scrutiny to date. Minister, before I answer the question, the second important point to emphasize is that since 2009, there have been about 20 publications, as you've mentioned, from all over the world, reporting on findings of very, very small concentrations of EDCs in sanitary pads and other female hygiene products. And similar to the study from the Free State, these studies have been led by analytical chemists who measure quantities using very sensitive equipment, but have not linked these measurements to clinical outcomes. Importantly, all of these have been small studies. They are observational in nature, most of them cross-sectional or retrospective in design, and so not designed to demonstrate causality between the measurement of these EDCs and clinical events. So to come to the question, the concerns, even on long-term exposure to EDCs, remain theoretical. And we have regulatory bodies in this country who are doing surveillance consistently, precisely to protect the South African public. And through their work, so far, there has been no signal of harm from these EDCs. And perhaps, Minister, before I close and hand over back to you, I may say something about the empirical approach, which is the foundational principle of the scientific method and how we demonstrate causality in medicine. This empiricism refers to the systematic acquisition of knowledge through observation, hypothesis generation, measurement, and experimentation, rather than theory, intuition, or authority alone. And in essence, empirical science relies on evidence derived from real world to test hypotheses and generate reliable knowledge that links an exposure to an outcome. And the typical research study designs that are needed to achieve this would be randomized control trials, cohort studies, case control studies, or laboratory experiments that are linked to clinical outcomes. And the goal of these is to generate reproducible data that can confirm or refute the hypothesis that there's a connection between an exposure and a clinical outcome. And the study we are discussing did not follow this vital tenet of medicine. And therefore, the finding of small quantities of EDTs in sanitary pads and panty liners have not been causally linked to any adverse clinical events. And indeed, there's been no adverse events or signal of harm demonstrated in any part of the world from the use of sanitary pads or panty liners following many decades of use. I'm going to stop there, Minister. Thank you.
Yeah, Dr. Brown from Geneva. Question here is exposure over the years, especially that the ECDs are found in foods, and the fear here is cancer from business day. What is your response to that?
Thank you, Honourable Minister. I think that around these chemicals has been very well described by yourself and by the colleagues. This is indeed a global issue and is extensively studied in many countries around the world, many regulatory authorities. And that science takes account of the fact that you can be exposed to these chemicals from many different sources, from personal care products, from food, from packaging, from things that
it's frozen.
And to emphasize what has been said by others, no harms from these types of products have been identified to date. And the World Health Organization makes it clear that access to menstrual products are very important for the health of women and adolescents. And from a public health perspective, the health benefits which are derived from these products should not be withdrawn without a good reason to do so. Those health benefits have to be balanced, and there is no clear evidence of harm from these products identified to date. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Tammy Gobal wants to say something from SAHPRA. You've got the floor.
Good morning, and thank you, Honourable Minister. Thank you. Can you hear me? On behalf of SAHPRA, I would just like to clarify on the question regarding regulations and counterfeits. So SAHPRA does not require that those license holders require a license, as they are low-risk medical devices. This does not preclude that those manufacturers and distributors need to adhere to global standards, such as ISO standards, and therefore ensuring the quality of the product on the South African market. I wanted to make that distinction clear. With regards to regulatory measures in informal settlements or informal outlets, it is required that these products still follow the regulations and the standards set by SAHPRA. With regards to counterfeit, we would like to encourage that the public report any counterfeit or substandard product related to sanitary products to SAHPRA. We have a whistleblowing hotline. We also have a complaints hotline. And we have regulatory compliance departments that are able to investigate and ensure the continued safety of our public. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Cindy, my last word to you with this question of fear of cancer in the long term because of sanitary pads. If you want to be scared of cancer, be scared of smoking. more than sanitary pads. That's the advice I can give you. Cigarette cause cancer everywhere and every form of cancer. Many people believe it causes only lung cancer. It doesn't. That is why in the war against smoking, when cigarette companies fight, they've never won a single case in court. There've been a court case in America, in Ireland, in England, in France. We know our own court case here when Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma started putting control of tobacco products for the first time. It has never won until the Minister of Health in Australia introduced what they call plain packaging to discourage adolescents from smoking. She was taken to court in Australia, she won. There was an appeal, she won. Then some countries said they are leaving this health issue to rush to the World Trade Organization to fight for their trade rights. When it arrived there, the World Trade Organization said no, they can't take this decision without the World Health Organization. And they said this matter, the Director General of the World Organization and the Director General of World Trade Organization must sit together. It took them 10 years, and they ruled in favor of health. That regardless of what trade consideration, health take precedence. Because of the danger of smoking, that is the one that must scare you more than any other product I know of. Because that smoking happens every day, and it happens to everybody, even those who don't choose to smoke. That's why we have got the bill now in Parliament to increase regulation. The second issue is alcohol. The third is sugar, which you eat every day, most of the time, whereas sanitary products are used at certain times of the month. You eat every day. It doesn't only cause diabetes, it also causes cancer. I'm just saying these are the commonest things we need to be aware of. So, and that does not mean that any other small risk that comes from somewhere is ill-considered. I'm just saying the biggest causative links of cancer is cigarette smoking among all the other products, because cigarettes by themselves, when you light them, they produce 7,000 chemicals, and 70 of those chemicals have been proven to cause cancer directly, not just theoretically. That's why you must be scared of them. Is there any other? Yes, I think my panel has answered to all the questions, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe then you need to take a certain set of questions.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, and other members of the panel for responding to the first batch of questions. Let's see if we've got follow-up questions, new questions in the House. Oh, I see. Any other question, colleagues, before I go to virtual platform? Okay, we'll have one. Let's check on the virtual platform. Takala, do you have any? Are you able to read them out? Before then she will, yeah.
Thank you, Moal. My apology in advance if other questions are repetitive or they are covered in the statement.
Who's speaking? Just
Yeah, he's going to mention
online.
Okay,
Yes,
online.
fine.
Yeah, thank you. The first three sets of questions are from Lehlono Lolehan from Full View. The first one is my understanding from the Minister is that the findings have caused unnecessary alarm. So it's not advisable to wait for a broader testing commissioned by NCC, I suppose, National Consumer Commission. And the second one is, can the scientists allay fears and confirm if the University of Free State findings are incorrect and misguided? The third one, SA does not set specific legal concentration limits for parabens or bisphenols in sanitary pads, though biological and microbiological testing is required under SANS standards. What is the ministry comment on this matter? And we have Pito Muliman from Kaya News. And the question is, based on the distributed information from the study, anxiety has become a prevalent everyday challenge. In simple non-medical jargon, what can the minister and scientists there say to individuals to build resilience, recover, and manage daily anxiety? Thanks.
Thank you very much. Now let's take the question from the House.
Since the main point that has been sort of driven home is that
The
there is
problem
no...
is I don't see who's speaking as I'm sitting because of the right.
I'm here, Minister.
So they mustn't be tired of introducing.
Yeah, just reintroduce yourself so that they are very straight forward when they address your question.
It's Sinesipo from Business Day. Since the main point that has been driven home is that there is no direct evidence or link of illnesses caused by ECDs found in sanitary pads as of yet, I want to know if the NCC will continue with the investigation. After the release of the study, there was an indication that there would be an investigation. Just wanted to get clarity on that.
Okay, before I hand over to Minister, let's just check in the House, are we sorted? Okay, Minister, over to you.
Can you give NCC to answer the last question?
Okay, come over.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Minister, Deputy Ministers. From the NCC's perspective, and as you have heard from the Minister as he presented, he has presented a joint from all affected parties on this matter. And from our side, science really does matter, and science informs what we do. And the scientists have spoken that we cannot rely on this research from UFS. Even the research itself suggests that the EDCs identified are quite low. We further engaged with the National Meteorology Institute of South Africa, which reached the same findings. So there should be no need to worry, at least from our side, about the quality of the products that are in the market, and we will not be instituting any product recalls on this basis. As the Minister said, the regulators should continue doing the work that they're doing. We have indeed, yes, initiated an investigation, and based on this information, we should be wrapping that work quite soon. So thank you.
Yeah. The question from Lithono online, whether scientists can allay fears, I thought they've done so adequately today. But I know once a person is fearful, it's possible even to hear what is being said. But I'm going to ask the scientists to repeat that. We put it in the conclusion, which I've read, that scientists are saying there's no evidence at present to support change of usual practice by users of the products. They said so. And Dr. Brown said WHO has been researching this issue for more than 100 years, and up to so far, They never found anything that can, what you call, harm people yet. And they say none of the tested products warrants withdrawal from the market. That's a very brave conclusion by scientists because they are very confident about what they are saying. And so I really want us to listen to science, and I'm happy that NCC says so. When NCC wanted to put an investigation, is because they were informed by a study done by scientists, the Department of Analytical Chemistry. But other scientists who directly deal with the human body came into being and said, no, this is not the route to follow, because these are the facts that we know. Because remember, analytical chemists are doing chemistry inside a laboratory, yes, but clinicians get in touch with people. That is why the clinicians which were brought here were chemical pathologists, not just chemistry professors, chemical pathologists. Chemical pathology is the course I did at medical school at 4th year. That shows the effects of chemicals inside human beings. Hormones are also chemicals falling within that. So you need chemical pathologists. You also need clinicians who meet these patients every day. In this case, you need gynecologists. They deal with women every day over the years. That's why Professor Borat and Professor Nene are there, because these are the people who know everything about what's happening in the female body. And they are the ones who will say, over the years, this is what we experience, etc. And they've spoken today. I will let them to speak again. Lithonol also said South Africa does set limits of phenols and parabens. And I'm sure the SAHPRA will comment about that. But before you go to the last question, I would like to give this time again to scientists. Scientists, they say you must allay fears. It means you did not allay them enough. I'm giving you time once more, starting with the Medical Research Council. Professor Ntusi, may you allay fears.
Thank you very much, Minister. So I'll make two points. The first, which I think has been repeatedly made by everybody else, which is that the design of this study by colleagues from the Free State does not allow us to be able to extrapolate or make any causal inference from that study about EDCs and clinical events. And it's important to emphasize that the finding of small quantities of these EDCs in sanitary pads, in the soil, in food, in many agricultural products, to date have not been causally linked with any adverse clinical events. And we also know that sanitary pads, panty liners, and many hygiene products have been used for many, many years by women all over the world. And there's been no signal of harm from their use following many decades. And so I think it's really important for us, not only as a scientific community, but as the media and those who share information with our public, to be very responsible in how we share this information. And perhaps I'll just make a very brief comment about the comment about South Africa not having any regulation for parabens, which is not true. So in fact, as Dr. Gopal from SAHPRA spoke earlier, there's an expectation that all producers of products continue to meet industry standards, and South African regulation aligns with EU guidance on levels of parabens in products. And we know that these are considered to be safe at very, very low levels. And so the fact that you can detect them at low levels doesn't mean that products are not safe. And I think it's a really important message to communicate. Thanks, Minister.
Professor Borat.
Yeah, thank you, Honourable Minister. Yeah, and maybe I should say a few things from a clinical perspective, which is quite important. And I'm going to kind of repeat a few things, but I think it's important to allay fears. Firstly, as we've said, the EDCs only have a potential to interfere with the actions of hormones, and there's been no established risk for the use of this or for the presence of these EDCs. The incidental finding of these chemicals, which is widespread in almost everything we're exposed to, it's not confined only to sanitary pads and panty liners, does not translate into risk. The other thing is the small contribution of sanitary pads and panty liners to the overall pool of EDC exposure. The small concentrations found in these products, which are below permissible levels, and the small sample size in the study, which limits generalizability, we can allay fears to the general public, and we need to come with an unequivocal message that the use of menstrual products at this moment in time is safe. We need to be clear about that, and we shouldn't hedge about what we are saying. It is safe to use the menstrual products as it is at the moment, and we have reached the conclusion that we should not have a change in the usual practice of what we are doing now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, Professor Nene, would you like to add something to what your colleague has said? Okay, maybe let's pass. I don't know what's happening there. Yeah, the regional representative of WHO, Dr. Shenas El Halabi, want to say something? You have got to come to the stage. Yes.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Ministers also present, and the media here. And thank you for the opportunity as well for WHO to be part of these discussions. And Minister, you have eloquently represented the views of WHO. If I may just maybe touch on one that was raised by a colleague in terms of the long-term exposure, that, you know, there are expert committees in place globally. Even in South Africa, you have, of course, the necessary regulatory process and experts within South Africa as well. So, for example, the minister referred to the cosmetics ingredients expert panel. Even in WHO, we have the experts, and we have experts convened. So they are continuously following the science, and they are expected to modify permissible levels as and when the science develops. As of now, there is nothing that's needed to trigger that. I think that's an important point. And they allow for the chronic exposure over decades when they are identifying possible levels. So they factor these in when they look at the modeling and so forth. And again, just to emphasize what my colleague also mentioned, that the public health benefits should never be lost without clear evidence of harm. And right now, sanitary pads, panty liners are part of the universal health coverage in terms of access. And we don't see any reason why the population should be denied this important public health benefit, because currently there is no evidence that suggests otherwise. Thank you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Dr. El Halabi. I was worried that in the minds of some people they will say, yeah, these are men, they've never used this thing, they are not worried. So I'm happy that there's a woman has mentioned that. Little online mentioned this issue of phenols. I'm drinking water from this bottle now. It's made of phenol resins. All of you, they have been drinking from this bottle of water without any fear, by the way. But it's made of phenol resins that you have mentioned. And phenols are part of these ECDs that we're talking about. I don't think you are about to stop drinking water from bottles and going to the tap. I just want you to know, when we say they are ubiquitous, they are found everywhere in our everyday life, and the fact that you can't get rid of them completely. The issue of anxiety, how to manage it. we can only manage it by giving you the correct facts. That's why I could have come here alone after we met with with all these scientists for the past 2 weeks. But we thought we need to bring a broader team of people to show that this is not just a belief of one person, because sometimes they'll just say, he's a politician. He's hiding the fact that they didn't protect the country. So we can only do as much as give you facts to remove your anxiety. And while I said a lot of men spoke on this issue of scientists having to allay fears, I'll also allow Dr. Brown again before finalizing. And the Department of Women, did you also want to say something? Please say it before before Dr. Brown.
Please allow Dr.
Okay. Dr. Brown, please come in.
Thank you, Honourable Minister.
It's on the issue of allaying. It's on the issue of allaying fears. Hello?
I'm sorry, the connection is breaking up. If you could repeat the question, please.
Yeah, they say, can scientists allay fears? Because this study was already out, widely spread, and people have got a lot of anxiety, they are scared. And they're saying, scientists, can you allay fears?
The best that I can say is that we follow this science all of the time. This is a global issue. There is a lot of global work taking place, and that research is shared and disseminated, including from regular reports from WHO, so that expert committees, when setting permissible levels for these kinds of products, can take into account the latest findings and ensure that we're maintaining that margin of safety. That those findings are then shared globally. As you heard, for example, in South Africa, you're using the same regulatory levels for some of these chemicals as other jurisdictions in the world, because we all share this goal of keeping everybody as safe as possible while maintaining access to products which give important health benefits. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Minister.
Thank you, Minister. Maybe just to also indicate that we want to affirm what the Minister has said with regards to the collective effort that are done. There is a technical team that is set up, coordinated in this work. That also includes Dr. Jack Biko, who's here, who's the president of the Fertility Society of Southern Africa. But I think one thing that we want to also rehash to South Africans, that the National Sanitary Dignity Implementation Framework guides what should happen in the country and what is also required around sanitary products distributed across our country. And this is why all the regulatory bodies, the partners, stakeholders, agencies are part of this. And 4 things: that distribution of products must meet the national safety standards, including the ISO standards, comply with the quality requirements, verified as well, but also be safe for prolonged bodily contact, and then continue with the ongoing quality assurance. So the framework on its own does allow us to do a number of things. 1, ensure that product safety is central to the dignity and the health and the rights of women, including the right to education. So the anxiety that we have to speak to is around ongoing education aspect of work to the public. We are sending a message here as a collective, as guided and led by the Minister here, that all stakeholders must play a role to communicate facts, to accept and allow also institutions of learning to continue with research, as Minister has said. These are knowledge production spaces, but we must communicate the right information and not misinterpret information accordingly. So as a ministry in the presidency, responsible for women, youth, and persons with disability, will continue, Minister, with the technical teams to advise the work, to also ensure that we intensify the education aspect of the work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Minister and other members of the panel. I think we are now going towards the end of the briefing. Let me just establish if we don't have any last questions, clarity-seeking questions in the House. Gone. Virtual platforms, do we have any other questions? In the absence of more questions, I'm going to call upon Minister once more to give the parting shot on behalf of the collective. Minister.
I just want to thank everybody for this work that has been done over the past 2 weeks under extreme pressure, where people could be tempted to bring to you a half-baked story. But we relented and kept on having meetings, consulting, and calling scientists. Many of you here might have forgotten that we faced a similar dilemma in 2012, and I still remember very well. We were issuing test kits for HIV/AIDS testing, and the Treasury then told us that the test kits are not used by the Department of Health only. It must be a transversal tender, which is controlled by Treasury. At that time, when the tender processes started, WHO issued a warning about the company in South Korea whose test kits were non-reactive most of the time. Non-reactive means you put a drop of blood there and nothing happens. As you know, these test kits react. There are chemicals which react and show you whether a person is HIV positive or not. We use the same thing to get blood sugar or not. But they were not reactive. And the Department of Health told Treasury officials, there is this warning. And the warning was simply saying, if a company has got more than 5% of their test kit non-reactive, avoid it, because it's simply going to waste your time. Because if a kit is not reactive, you just throw it away and take another one. But they said, avoid a company that will make you repeat all the time. Now, Treasury said no, but it's not in the specifications. And we as Treasury, we are not controlled by the World Organization and will be sued. That company from South Korea was given the tender. When the media picked it, non-reactive translated into false results. I remember I was in London for a conference there about family planning. When the story went out, regardless of the advice from World Organization, this test kit was given, it gave people wrong results. And the demand was all the people who were tested must be brought back, because there are those who have been tested positive falsely because of these test kits, and those who tested negative falsely, bring them back. By that time, we have tested women. I mean, millions of people. And you can imagine having to recall millions of people. I tried to explain. I just could not win. There are even those people who said, this minister must be having shares in South Korea. I've never even gone to South Korea in my life yet when we visit other countries. And they said I must be having shares there. That's why we went against what the World Health Organization said. We tried to explain. Fortunately, when the story broke out, as I said, I was in London. The Director General of the World Organization then was Dr. Margaret Chan. She was there. I discussed the matter with her. She said, Minister, the HIV/AIDS program in South Africa is so important, we can't allow it to be tarnished by anything. Because even at UN, when we report the success of the antiretroviral program, South Africa is our lodestar. So I don't want this to happen to South Africa. She sent a lot of experts, 4 from Geneva, to come and explain what non-reactivity is. I called a press conference at Southern Sun next to the airport. They said exactly what I was saying to the media. And within the 30 minutes, the media believed them. The story that I was spreading all the time, that non-reactive does not mean false results. So why am I giving you this story? I want to demonstrate to you the power of the media. You have got power because we have got no other way of giving information. Even through the other platform through which we give information, we can't beat the media. You know that very well. So we called you here to come and listen to the scientists. If you are the ones who are still skeptical about this issue, then the anxiety from society and the reassurance won't help. We depend on whether the media people believe this story, especially women in the media who are also using these products. That's why I didn't call one group, I called everybody. And we believe you will sit and think, what is your responsibility to society on these issues? And without that responsibility of yours to society, the anxiety which has spread, it will never stop. And so we are asking you, if you need to ask more questions, we are here again, the scientists are there, they won't be able to run away. They deal with human beings every day. Thank you very much for listening to this. We hope the message will now be corrected. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister and members of the Parliament present in the House and virtually, and all those who have contributed to this media briefing and the media statement. As Minister has indicated, that will ensure that the experts and also the political principals, they remain available in order to continuously clarifying the message as far as the findings of the study is concerned. So on that note, allow me to adjourn this media briefing. Feel free to engage on 111. Thank you very much. Have a great day.